ask about yesterday was President Biden said the midterm elections, quote, easily could be illegitimate. Is he predetermining that the November elections are going to be suspect?
Well, I talked to the president about this last night and this morning. He was not intending to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the 2020 election. He was actually attempting to make the opposite point, which is that in 2020, despite COVID, despite many attempts to suppress the vote, a record number of voters, Democrats and Republicans, independents too, turned out in the face of a pandemic, and election officials made sure they could vote and have those votes counted. He was also explaining that the results would be illegitimate if states do what the former president asked them to do in more than a half a dozen states in 2020, after the 2020 election, toss out ballots and overturn results after the fact. And his view is that one of the most important roles we can play now is informing and educating the public on what these laws are, on efforts to suppress their vote, and even beyond the laws, efforts in different states across the country to make it more difficult for them. Go ahead, Phil.
Thanks, James. Just to follow up on that, the president said, predicted that something would get done in the electoral reform side. Senator Manchin said today that he'd spoken to the president about the bipartisan effort that's going on related to the Electoral Count Act as well. Is the president getting behind that effort? Are you guys involved in that effort? How do you see that effort playing out, given kind of when he gets that effort earlier through the context of the John Lewis Act?
Well, we've never been against it. We just have always wanted to be clear that it was not a substitute for voting rights legislation, which some, I think, were attempting to project. And so, especially as we were working to get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act across the finish line and the Freedom to Vote Act, which do very different things, right? I mean, than the Electoral Count Act. The Freedom to Vote Act creates standards for voter access and voter registration, outlines criteria to make redistricting less partisan, and strengthens campaign finance laws. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act establishes a new pre-clearance process to ensure that certain states and jurisdictions need approval from the Department of Justice before moving forward with changes that impact voting rights. The Electoral Count Act does something entirely different. So I think our point is it's not a replacement for it. But certainly the president is open to engaging with, talking with, as we are, even though it's not a substitute. Republicans and others who are interested in moving forward.
Another legislative question.